How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks heaps for doing this, brother.
Oh, it's good to catch up. It's been a while.
First recurring guest.
Yeah.
Different setup.
Second podcast.
Yeah, what's been happening?
Oh, it's been a busy year. It's nice to slow down now.
Release an album?
December. Yeah.
Yeah.
Released an album. Been around the world for science and worked on The Promise last year and had that released this year. So that was awesome.
Nice. Just pull that a little closer. Tell me, what was the inspiration of the album?
Oh, so it's called A Scientific Odyssey. Most people probably don't know this about me, but I'm a scientist as well as a composer. And so A Scientific Odyssey, the album was totally inspired by my research as a PhD researcher. And I use all these big electron microscopes that can reveal the molecular structures that give us our life. And
Pull this a little bit closer.
yeah,
Right in.
so
That's better.
I was kind of totally inspired by just that feeling of awe looking at that.
When you're doing that, do you have something that starts it? Is it starts from sounds? Is it starts from actually what you're working? I know you're looking through that hectic telescope down in Melbourne and stuff.
Yeah. I think it starts from a concept. I always try and make my albums just build around a concept. For example, Stories from the Sky was all about looking up at the sky as a form of escape, especially during the pandemic and everything. And then once I have that concept, I try to dissect it into a bunch of different sub-concepts, and each track represents one of those sub-concepts.
Okay.
So with A Scientific Odyssey, the first track, I kind of followed through the scientific method. So the first track was about hypothesizing and coming up with an idea in science. And then the second track was about investigating that. And then the third track, it kind of follows through the order of conducting science. And then the final track is about finding those results and then what that leads to. So I try and divide it up into different parts.
Do you have a process where you've kind of written all that and then you play it to someone and ask them what they feel or conceive that message, or you just not worry about that? This is just you expressing that and you're just happy to leave it out there?
Yeah, I used to send it to my mate a lot. I'd send him demos and things and get his feedback. But nowadays I don't really send it to anyone. I just want to express what I want to. It's almost like a journal or a diary. It's kind of just a bit intimate and personal. And I'm at the stage now where I can get my ideas out in a form of music and it sound exactly as I intend. Whereas in the past, when I was still learning the process, I would need some help and some feedback and try and get my ideas out properly. Now that I can just do that, I don't think I need to kind of reach out to anyone and get feedback and opinions on it anymore.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so it's a very different process now than it used to be for me.
Do you have any other ideas or something that you want to explore or express through your music?
I feel like every time I work on a project or release an album, I'm just in this big phase of exhaustion. I'm just creatively exhausted. I don't have any ideas. And then out of nowhere, I'll get an idea and I'll have the creative juices ready again. It's probably the same working on the films. Do you feel like you just drop off after releasing a film and you need to take a break? Or
I think in a way, to some degree, I've only done two, but they more so I've written heaps of scripts that I haven't made, but while I'm writing them, I'm kind of going through something in my life where I'm putting all of my life experiences and thoughts and emotions into a script, and I'm kind of figuring out the issue for myself to move through it or past it or over it or just enjoy it or whatever it might be into the script. And then I kind of finish and I'm like, oh, I've worked through what I had to get through.
Yeah. I guess the thing is with directing films and also being a screenwriter, you just have so many different aspects. I guess you can move from the directing phase into screenwriting and it would feel different for you, right? It's a totally different approach, different workflow and everything. Whereas in music, it's you're writing music or you're not. So it's just there's no, there aren't different phases. It's either you are doing music or you're not. And there's no sub jobs, as you would have.
Do you think there's almost like a pre-production where you're doing a PhD and that's your kind of writing it, you're experiencing these things, and you just said, all the different tracks, there's kind of different layers. You're going through that through uni.
Yeah.
And then that's your writing, and then your filming will be actually writing the create
in
music.
a way. I mean, I didn't plan at all for the PhD to be an inspiration for an album. Like, it just happened. Like, I was just inspired in the moment when I was using these microscopes and everything, and it just came out. And like the other albums are completely different concepts, like I mentioned. Like, so yeah, I guess in some ways it feels like it's my pre-production. I'm trying to acquire the material, getting the inspiration on board, and then I sit down and do the writing of the music.
I've tried telling a few people what you're doing, and I'm probably just absolutely butchering the, yeah. Because I feel like could win you a Nobel Prize or something. Like, it's
Yeah.
incredible. So like, can you share it, or is it a secret? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's parts of it I can share. So I research into pregnancy complications like stillbirth, where a person is pregnant and then for some reason where something's gone wrong in the physiology and in terms of their cell biology and their tissue, the pregnancy fails, the baby dies either in utero, so during the pregnancy, or after it's born. And so one of the biggest findings over the last 30 to 50 years has been that the reason behind these pregnancy failures is the placenta. And so most people don't even think about the placenta. Like, if I asked you, tell me like the most important organ in the body, most people say like the heart or the lungs or the brain or something. But it's actually the placenta that sets up our life from before we're even born. And we throw it out after we're born. Like, it literally just gets incinerated unless people decide to keep it. So we are looking at the placenta and what happens when the placenta is not doing its job well enough. It's not delivering enough oxygen and glucose and nutrients and everything to the growing baby. And because of that, the fetus has these problems. Like, for example, if it doesn't receive enough oxygen, then it's growing in this hypoxic environment. So it literally asphyxiates. And this can lead to death in the worst case. So using these electron microscopes, we're looking at the smallest structures inside these placental cells that are responsible for that pregnancy failure, and seeing if we can develop new drugs or therapeutics that can correct that poor structure that we have seen is causing this stillbirth. Yeah.
Can you explain the next part too?
So once we have a drug that works, in the cells, we need to test whether it works in more complex models. So one of the things I actually did this year is I went to New Zealand, to the University of Auckland, and it was like a mini sabbatical kind of to learn these new techniques. And over there, they've developed this method to grow placental tissue outside of the body. So in the lab, they're growing it's like lab meat, but it's placenta. And so instead of just testing the drugs on cells, we're now able to test the drugs out on these tissue models of the placenta in the lab, which is insane. Like, you can manipulate these tissues in a variety of ways, like cause genetic insults or whatever it is. So yeah, it's pretty amazing the different methods you can do these days.
And like, when you find, like, you kind of gather all your findings and then you might find drugs or different ways to manipulate the placenta, you'll be able to stop disease and...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. It is a long way. I mean, once we do these complex tissue models and we go into animal models and then we go into clinical trials with humans, and then after a long road of 3 phases of clinical trials and FDA approval and everything, then if it works and passes all those stages, then potentially it can be used to correct this pathology that we're seeing. Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah, it's a long road. I mean, to make a drug, it takes about 10 years at least to get a drug from the basic discovery science to the actual release of the drug. So it's kind of a legacy thing. We work on it now, and then hopefully one day humans are able to use our findings, our publications to something meaningful.
For what you're kind of studying and like what you're researching and doing your PhD, can something be formed and implemented completely where it's just like a normal practice from what you're doing?
Yeah, I think, well, we have some promising results at the moment, but it is a long road, and, you know, you go through these big pivots and changes through the course of your research. Like, you're chasing down the rabbit hole in one way, and then if you don't get the right finding, then you kind of have to pivot and then go down another rabbit hole. So, but if we keep following that and then keep doing good science, then yeah, I'm sure there will be something meaningful from this research that other scientists can use in their research. And it's just how it kind of propagates off that.
How'd you get into this?
Well, I did. I studied IT before I went into science, and I didn't really enjoy the content. I felt it was too dry for me. And I've always loved science. Like I've always loved learning about how things work, like how a car works. Why is the sky blue? Like these simple questions when I was a kid. And so I decided to study biotechnology at uni. And I loved what I was doing in my final year in my placement. And then I went into honours and now PhD. So just kind of I've landed up in it, but I just love doing it. So I never decided to change ship. Yeah.
And you're a world-class composer as well. Best composer in the world.
It kind of happened as an accident, like just out of nowhere. Like because I started, like you would know this, like when I was doing IT, I majored in film production and then I was making music for our documentaries and stuff. And then other students in the class would want me to do music for their projects. And then
Everyone wanted Sid.
Yeah. And then we met at uni as well. And then we kind of worked on a few projects together and it just kind of grew by as an accident.
I don't think we actually met. Like I didn't see you at
uni.
I
knew,
both,
I knew your name, but I hadn't met you. I think at uni.
we were there together, but
Yeah.
I don't think we had classes or.
Your name was just like this mysterious thing people talk about. Say, oh, Jye Currie, for real. Like people were talking about Jye Currie, and it's like he's already a working professional, and he's come back to uni or something. It's like a mysterious myth or something.
I had like two people last week say something about like they basically were saying I'm ADHD and I'm like on the verge of I'm always manic and so much energy and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I thought I was quite chill. I don't know how you perceive me. I feel like I'm a pretty chill
Honestly,
person.
ADHD, like some of the best scientists I work with have ADHD, and it's honestly a blessing, I think, because it helps you to just come up with these ideas that no one else could think of. I think. Do you feel like it helps you with film?
I don't know if I am.
You don't even are.
Everyone's told me I am, yeah. I got a lot of things going all the time,
Yeah.
like always.
Well, you're always super creative. You come up with solutions to creative problems that we have in filmmaking pretty quickly. Like I feel like I recognize that.
Thanks, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a super unique skill to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like with film specifically, because like me and Bailey were chatting about this the other day, we shot beat almost like a documentary where we were like, there was so many people on the set, almost everyone had never been on a film set before. We're working with professional actors that some of them having like really big names in the industry. And, you know, we had to shoot it in like 14 days and just like with COVID and budget constraints and all this stuff, we didn't have the flexibility to go in and see a site and go and plan out all our shots. We had to get in and make decisions on the fly and just come up with everything and just be working in that almost like a documentary mindset where we're like, yeah, this is it. What shots do we need? What do we not need? Just make decisions and move on. And I guess like it turned out great. Obviously, for the first film, very happy. And then the second one, like when we actually were doing a documentary, it was just
you got the experience with the documentary style now. So moving forwards, you can kind of incorporate all these skills of being able to quickly troubleshoot on the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in development of 2 more docos.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a fiction, which I can't wait to get back to. Like obviously can't wait for the docos, but I can't wait to go back to the fiction space.
Yeah.
With all the documentary skills and have so much time.
Yeah.
And like working with professional actors that can ace what they're doing. It's a controlled environment. Perfect. We just didn't get it. Let's go again. You don't get that in documentary.
Yeah.
So being able to go back to that is going to feel, I think, so easy.
Yeah. And it's just such a different style of filmmaking. Like you have creative control over so many aspects. Like whereas in the documentary, you're kind of at the mercy of what you have on the day. If you're out on the go outdoors, then, you can't control the lighting in the ways that you'd want. You just have to capture the moment. Whereas in a fiction film, everything is an intentional creative choice, right? Like that must be a thrill to just be able to control everything at that degree.
And I can't wait to go back and do that again now. Because even I think because I've shot so many weddings back in the day, just filming weddings all the time, it's like there's so many times during the wedding day where a real authentic moment happened, someone's crying, give someone a cuddle, and you got to be on the whole day and capture them moments. Like, and if you don't, I mean, I can do everyone can film a wedding, but like, it doesn't mean it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But if you're doing good stuff, you're on all them moments. You capture all them moments. You just like, you can't go back and be like, oh, sorry, Arnie, can you cry again and kiss him like you did? It's not
That's probably, I reckon that has helped you so much with preparing for shooting docos, because you have that experience of being able to recognize the moments that you want to capture.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people just stand around and they wouldn't realize there's a beautiful moment here that if you were to capture it on film, it would look amazing, incredible. You know, just such a different experience. That's pretty cool.
With that, like that idea, relating that back to your music, do you have any like you think, oh, I've done all that stuff and that's impacting in, because like you're doing incredible stuff, like the numbers you're doing on Spotify, the work you're doing, everyone always says the sound is just ridiculous, and it doesn't seem like you can just walk into that.
Yeah, I think it's similar. Like you have to recognize a moment in a scene and envision what you could elevate that scene to with the music. And then sometimes it's also the call of when not to use music. Silence is an instrument in score. Like you need to know what scenes would be actually more impactful if you didn't write any music underneath. And it does take a lot of experience. Like probably someone who's fresh into the game will underscore music for an entire film. Like in an hour film, they'll probably write 55 minutes of music or something. Whereas now that I've kind of become a bit more experienced and worked on a lot of different projects, different styles, different genres, I'm starting to pull back a little bit and see where I can actually not clutter the space, where I can use silence. Because then those bits of silence will make the bits with music even more impactful. Because the audience subconsciously realizes that music has come in when they haven't heard it in a while, and it's like it does something really interesting.
I think it's poorly done. Well, not poorly done, but it pulls me out of the story when I have noticed it.
Yeah.
Like there'll be times you're watching a movie and the score picks up and I just think about the score.
Yeah.
It's like it's just taken me straight out of straight out of the story. Like it's beautiful what it's done, but it's too beautiful for the scene.
Yeah.
It's pulling me away from the story. And I think that's the thing with filmmaking is everything has to be contributing towards the one thing, which is the story.
Yeah.
And even if like there's a scene and we're in the story, then I just go, oh, that's a really beautiful shot. The cinematographer's done an incredible job capturing a great shot.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the job. The job was to tell that part of the story. So it's almost like you didn't hit it on the head because you've pulled me out of it in a sense.
Yeah.
But like it could be color, it could be editing. There's so many other factors, and that's the whole thing about filmmaking is it's such a collaborative thing.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to realize that the music is there only to serve the story. It's actually very easy to get carried away and just try and make, like if I see a really good scene for music and my first thought would be, wow, I could make music really shine here and make the audience really think about the music. But that's not always supposed to be the intention. It's supposed to be, how can I serve this story? How can I help this story to be told in the way that the director wants it to be? So it's very different as well to making my own album music, because I'm not like writing a music for someone else's story. I'm writing it for what I want. So it's super different.
So our next doco, we won't go too much into it, but you're going to be composing real people singing.
Yeah.
Choir, women singing.
Yeah. That would be a very unique challenge.
Yeah.
We've never done anything like that. And yeah, I think it would be a big learning process, a big learning curve. But if we can pull it off,
you'll pull it off.
The emotions that you can tell, it'll just be next level. It won't be like anything we've worked on before.
I think you're going to shine even more because, like when you're composing music, like it happened with Beat and A Promise, and then I'm directing you to compose. I'm going, I don't know, I want more of this. Or when I'm just using weird language. I'm like think about a piece of metal scraping against a rock and you kind of give it to me. And I go, perfect. Yeah, that was it. And we're working together. I think it's going to be now, it's going to feel like that. You're going to feel like you're in my position in that sense. Yeah. And the singers are now that it's going to feel like, and I can't wait to watch you do that because it's going to feel like another layer of control, because so much of your creativity will be released, like freed up in a point where then you can think and direct a little bit more. So your creativity is just going to be coming from a different place where I think you're going to pull so much more out of it.
Yeah, well, that's so true. I mean, because I in no way understand singing or even if we were to work with instrumentalists or orchestras, I don't know the vocabulary that they would use because I don't know music theory. I can barely read music. So being able to communicate my ideas to them will be the same as you trying to communicate your ideas to me. It'll be super interesting to see. But if we can move past that, then the sound that we can achieve with real people is just unparalleled. You can't achieve it anywhere else.
It's authentic.
And that's where I've been moving. Like every time I work on my own album as well, I try and use less and less synthetic sounds, use real instrumentalists. Like on a Scientific Odyssey, I worked with 2 violinists, cellists, a flute player. Like I'm just moving towards that now because you can't achieve that sound anywhere else. You get their own input. You get their perspective on the melody and what they kind of place it within their own context. So if there's a sad melody, it's not just my sad melody anymore. It's them putting their own sadness into it when they perform it. It's just so different.
And talking about emotion too, I feel as if when I'm trying to change the sound you've got, and I'm clearly not using any of the terms that people would use in the music world, I feel like I'm telling you the emotion I need, I'm like, no, I need to feel this. Remember, when we were doing the music for the scene with Kevin, and I was like, imagine like, I remember saying, imagine like you're standing there and someone walks past you and you think they're real dodgy, something's going to happen, and you kind of hold your breath, and then just as you relax, they're gone, and just as you relax, and then they just turn around and start coming back, and then you feel the little inside your stomach going, oh no, what's about to happen now? That noise.
Yeah.
So it's like I paint that picture of a feeling, and then I would say something like that, and you'd go, I got it. And you pull something up and put it there, and I'd be like, that's what I wanted. Yeah. That's it. And it's like it could be a bell or a drone or a impact, but it was like, it's finding that sound from an emotional place.
Yeah, but I think that's actually extremely important that you don't speak the vocabulary of music, because if you were to just tell me, okay, I want a drone specifically of this tone, everything, you said everything to the dot of what the real vocabulary is, then that takes away my creativity as a composer. But if you just give it to me in layman's terms, the director's vision of what it should be, give me a sound that makes me feel sick, then I've got all the creativity in the world to create a sound that hopefully no one's used in any other film, because we want it to be unique, and I can give that to you. So I think it's actually really important that there is a disconnect there between your vocabulary for music and my ability to achieve what you're envisioning.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why it works every time, is because you give me the feeling and I try and give you something, the sound, the music theory behind it. So The Promise, we worked on that last year. Yep. And that was a completely different experience, both music in terms of music and switching into documentary from doing beat, which is a fiction film. So what was that process like? Directing, going into... Because you'd worked on the short film version beforehand.
Yeah. It just kept evolving. It was like, I said to Craig, we should just do something short to start with, like going right back to the start of it. I was like, let's just do like a small piece for social media. That's going to help you, help people, something to grab to. And we're only going to do like a minute piece, like Craig saying something small. And then it turned into, I sat there and asked him a bunch of questions, and the conversation was flowing and the story just kept coming out. And then I was like, oh, this is good. We could make like a 5-minute piece out of this. And, we ended up talking for like an hour and a half. And then I was like, oh, it'd be good to have like a counter voice. Do you have like, and then it was Francis. Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm like, okay, great. Well, we'll have a conversation with her, and it'll be nice to have the two voices talking. So then like she's coming from the wealth of knowledge she has and giving a new perspective to the your story and whatnot. And then what about like a personal? And then it was like, oh, well, what about Paul Harrigan? And then it evolved, and then we had Jye Currie, and then it ended up being like a 10-minute short film. Yeah. We put on YouTube and just released, and was like, okay, it's done. And it went out, and people were just ringing Craig and sending messages to me, and this needs to be more, this needs to be bigger, this Australia needs this. Yeah. And it was one of them things where it was just like the response from it was it was almost as if the project was organic in the sense that it was growing on its own
Yeah.
and was always going to come into the existence. Like things just kept doing that. And we got to the funding phase, and like with most films, is the hardest process. And we pushed for like 9 months, and that was probably the hardest part of the whole thing. But once we got the funds, thank you to our incredible sponsors, and it just was just like straight in pre-production, and everything was just it was smooth.
Well, now that you mention how it just evolved organically, don't you think it's so interesting how creative projects, it almost feels like you're discovering the project when you're creating it. It doesn't feel like you're inventing it. It feels like you're discovering it. Like it already exists somewhere, and you're just kind of, everything that you do to work on it is revealing, like taking away like the scaffold, and you reveal what's behind. It's so weird. Like that's how it is in music. I feel like the puzzle pieces just fit together in such a way that it's like I'm just discovering a song that already exists somewhere, a potential melody that exists somewhere in the universe. I'm just discovering it.
I think about that with life.
Yeah.
Like when I learn things, I've literally been sitting in a class in uni and being taught something for the first time, and I'm sitting there like feel like I'm having deja vu, saying, I'm just re-remembering this. I already know this. I already knew this. It's like I've been taught it, I've forgotten it, and I'm just re-remembering it.
Yeah, especially doing like creative stuff at uni. It's like you already intuitively know. Like when we're doing all the film stuff before we even go to uni, we already intuitively use all those practices that they're going to teach us at uni anyway. But it's just when we get to uni, they give us the words, the theoretical frameworks, and just tell us what we already know. But now that we know it, and we have that deja vu experience, we know it, then we can consciously apply it instead of intuitively.
Yeah.
It's super interesting, like flow theory. You remember learning about that at uni?
Loved it.
Like we all knew flow theory was a thing before we learnt about it, because we just intuitively know if we have a big enough challenge and we have the skill set, then we achieve this like peak flow. But now that we've learnt about it, we know that it's a real thing. Like there's a real framework behind it. There's hundreds of publications on it. We can actively employ it in our work, in our workflows.
Yeah. Creativity is definitely one of them things that does that. But I had so many people ask me like with beat, how'd you know what to do? And I'm like, I didn't. Like I really didn't. I was just trusting. I don't know. It's like I feel like whether it's intuition or what, but I'm just trusting in something. And me and Bally spoke about it, and I said I had a thing. We were probably talking about it more in the sense of like taking risks, but I was like, I know that when it comes to this point, which whatever it might be, like what sound do we use or where do we want the camera, I'll just figure it out. And just moving through that, like moving in that way, has just always been that thing where it's like I'm re-remembering how to put the camera there. Or
it's very instinctual. Like you trust your gut, you trust your instincts, and you just know what you need to do to achieve the scene that you envision sometimes.
It's so weird, but because like why is filmmaking instinctual?
Yeah, because it's not a ancestral thing. It's not something. It's a relatively new technology, but yet we apply some sort of ancestral instinct to it. Well, maybe because we're all storytellers. I mean, ancestrally, we're all storytellers. We know the best way to tell a story and have it preserved for thousands of years. We pass down our knowledge. Maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that, but because I've thought about that a fair bit. With why do I know like I want the cut there?
Yeah.
Why do I want to show that camera there?
Yeah.
Like I know at the core it's because that's going to enhance the story.
But there is a moment. Like it's not a grey area. It is a black and white moment.
100%.
Where if you had the cut before, it wouldn't work. You don't connect with the character enough. If you have it for too long, then you disconnect because it's just too awkward. But there's like some sort of a moment, like an optimal moment for every single shot that you have it.
And what is that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. That's what it is. Like being an editor as well, it's to edit a film, you have to be very instinctual in that. You need to know where that cut needs to be. That's a skill. Like they have huge respect from me, editors. Like I used to edit it a bit as well, so I understand how hard it is. But to know where that point is it takes a skill and experience and talent.
There's a book called In the Blink of an Eye. I don't know if you've read it. No. It's an editing book for films. And it's not like how to edit, but he just talks about editing. I guess just getting people like in the mindset of understanding like what we're talking about now. And he says about the average film could be edited in so many different ways to the point where it's almost like infinite.
Yeah.
There's that many, like you could give all the footage to every editor in the world and you're all going to come back with different movies.
Yeah.
And he talks about, I guess, the understanding of like probably just tapping into that.
I mean, it's just similar in music as well. Like, it takes a lot of instinct to know how to approach a scene with music. Like when even going back to talking about silence, it takes instinct to know when to have music, what type of music to have, how involved the orchestration needs to be, and it's just something that you understand.
Is there I don't know if you do it or you've looked into it, but is there a process like a picture? When a painter comes to a blank canvas, they might start with just getting a specific colour straight on, and then they'll like draw lines, or there'd be a general approach and practice on how they're going to build. Like, is it the same for you? Like lay down a track or a sound first?
I mean, it's different for every composer. For me, it does feel a lot like painting. Like I will approach. Well, here's the thing: for working on films and working for clients and advertising, commercial stuff, it's a different approach to me writing my own music. When I write my own music, it's very improvisational. Like that's how I make all my albums. I sit down, I improvise something on the piano, I double track it. So I go back to the start and re-record over it with another instrument, and I just improvise 100 times until I get all the.
And you don't save them tracks?
Yeah, I'll save each of those tracks so they'll start building up and layering. But when I'm doing commercial work like films or advertising, whatever it is, it's like approaching a canvas, and I try and pencil in these outlines, these sketches, and then I slowly start to fill them in. I color them in. I do different, skin tone shades, whatever painting is. Like that's how it is as well. And then I add in the textures. So it's a very similar process to painting in, like on a canvas.
It's funny when you asked before about the promise and what was it like, and before I was talking about the I'm looking forward to going back to the fiction world and applying everything I learned. With the promise, I laid out the story structure during pre-production. So I wrote, which I'm guessing a lot of people do, like they work off scripts for documentaries, but I already knew the first 10 minutes I want to explore this, the next 10 I want to do this, and halfway I want this, and everything was laid out. And I wrote all my questions because I'd done all the interviews around that too. So like I had a very, very clear, as much as it was a documentary and moments were unfolding and stuff, I had like a very clear structure I'm like, I know in the last 20 minutes what we're going to be exploring.
But I feel like that comes across when you watch the film. It feels like everything is guided towards the transition between the different scenes. It feels like Craig and all the interviewees, they said the exact right things to lead you into the next scene. And it probably comes from the fact that it was almost kind of predetermined in your script and in the questions that you were asking them to guide the audience through the film. So that's such an interesting approach.
What do you do that with albums? Like with each track, do you want the track to finish knowing this track's coming second?
Sometimes, when I organize the track list on an album, I very intentionally try to order the tracks in a way to tell a story. So it's about being cohesive and about the narrative. I will often place the tracks in a certain order that will guide the audience through the story. Like for example, with the Scientific Odyssey, like I mentioned, it follows the scientific method where you hypothesize, you do the methods, and you get the results and everything. I positioned my tracks in such a way that it guided the audience through that method. So if I had the tracks any other way, it probably wouldn't have told the narrative in a specific way. And most people probably don't care about narratives and albums. I don't think most people even listen to albums anymore. Like it's all listening to singles and Spotify and stuff. But for me, that was what I wanted to tell with this story, with my album. So I just did that.
Yeah. I remember we were having a conversation, I don't know when, but you was talking about people don't listen to albums.
Yeah.
And it was when I understood like certain albums, I'm guessing most of them, I still don't know, but And I was like, oh, an album's written to be heard
in order.
this song and that song and this song. Because I thought they were just like, oh, I'm going to create the songs and each song's just like, during this year, I made 12 songs and that's the album.
Yeah.
But not that this song is going to be in this song and this song. And I was like, wow.
I mean, a lot of albums are probably just compilations of tracks. But yeah, I feel like a majority of at least the good albums, in my opinion, have a story and they have a narrative and a structure and they're intended to be listened through in an order. And especially going back to when we had vinyls and things, you had no choice but to listen through in order. I mean, you could pick up the needle and drop it anywhere you wanted, but it was intended to be listened through in an order. But now with Spotify and streaming services, it's moving to a culture of singles where you just have one song from the album released every month for like a year and there's no real narrative or structure to it.
Do you think it's because of attention?
Yeah, I think it's about getting streams and virality, being viral, and about the money and stuff. So the whole game's changing. The industry's changed so much because people are really having to struggle and strive to be heard. And now things are being geared towards TikTok and stuff. Like they're actually changing the way they create their music so that they can intentionally get a viral song on TikTok. Yeah.
I've had people like shooting a music video for someone like, oh, we want to do this because we want that to become a trend.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, it's kind of like watching a movie and then you just like, I feel like they put that in because they want that to be an iconic scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Like Joker 2.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, like there was a couple of times where I watched it and I'm like, you know that scene in the first one after he's like shoots the three guys and he runs in the bathroom and then he starts dancing.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was so iconic. That was just like, that's just cinema. And it felt real and organic and I felt like they just tried to drop in 4 or 5 of them in the second one and I'm like, it feels forced now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with like the music, going back to TikTok, it's like you can't, maybe you can, but I just don't feel like it's going to go viral if you've forced it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like, if you intentionally try to create something that will go viral, maybe it won't become viral. Like it has to be something that's, well, all the memes and everything is usually like accidental, I feel.
There's a guy, he's been on a podcast, I forget his name, but it was about that. He just somehow can open up an Instagram account tomorrow and post content that he has not created, but he just seems to post certain content that he can just build a page to 10 million in a month.
I mean, I'm sure there's a recipe or an algorithm for it, like some sort of a recipe to gain viral videos every single time just by following a method to it. Maybe. I mean, that's probably what a lot of the big companies and the big labels are doing because they know how to exploit it and get big streams for their artists. I don't know.
But like, then is it the content or is it the algorithm of like at what time he's posting and stuff? Because like, I feel like if, let's just say I want like surfing and I'm just going to get all these epic surf photos and just post 200 a day. Well, and then like in a month, does that just got like thousands of posts and no followers?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a combination because you have to have the creative skill and the talent and you need to have something unique and organic as well at the same time. Like I don't think if you had a really bad song but you had something in there that could go viral, I don't think maybe it wouldn't go viral. Or maybe it would go viral for the wrong reasons, like because it's funny, but it wouldn't go viral in the way that you intend. So I don't know. It's a super unique concept and it's new and I don't think we know much about it.
But even like Shawshank Redemption was released 3 times.
Yeah.
So you got to think like, it's like one of the best movies ever now, like rated.
Yeah.
And they released it, flop. They waited 6 months, redone a marketing campaign, flop. Waited so long, done another marketing campaign, hit. And just absolutely, now but it's the same movie. If someone sits there and watches it, they love it. It's an incredible story. Why did it flop the last 2 times? So now it's like, how much of it's timing? How much is it like is it timing? It's the same film.
Yeah. I mean, do you think luck's involved or do you think something's changed? Like the audience has changed or
I don't know, but I think about that stuff like with
Yeah.
social media, what we were just saying, and it's like, is it like how much, like, because I know content, it all comes back to content, the story and the everything with that, but then like how much of it is the timing or like the distribution of it essentially?
Yeah.
There's so many incredible films that
They're just underrated. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many movies I love, and I always Google them afterwards, and I low-key pray that they got the attention they deserve, but then oftentimes they haven't. It's been either poorly rated for some reason, or it's just never gained the traction. And maybe it's, I don't know, is it a marketing thing? They didn't have enough money on the promotion side, or it's just, you could probably submit that a really good film to a film festival 10 times, and maybe 7 times you won't even get in, and then the 3 times you would. So, and
I've thought about it heaps. I'm like if it'd just be such a cool experiment to have like someone like Spielberg or Martin Scorsese direct a film, not put their name on it at all, have a random person
and see if it gets the traction.
and see if it goes as it would.
Yeah.
Because like there's so many more layers to like the networking and who's producing it and like what film festivals are getting it into, and the fact that it went into that film festival, it could not even be good, but people start pulling out all this stuff that they think was purposely put in there or that was intentionally put in there, and they're like I've seen it with I've watched like interviews with like a writer, and they go, and when you wrote that scene, like you done this, and they go, no, I just wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you just come up with that. They go, oh, that was not my intention. I didn't plan that. Like it's just you're pulling that out of nothing.
Yeah. And this, did you watch Megalopolis, the new movie? No. I haven't seen it either, but it's for similar reasons, getting a lot of mixed opinions about it, because the director is huge and he's done huge films before. And
Who directed it?
Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah. And like a lot of people love it because it's him and they think there's some vision behind it. And then a lot of people hate it because they think it's just so, it's gone too far, because it's,
What's it about?
I don't even know. It's set in some sort of a utopia like environment, and I have no idea what it's about. I haven't seen it yet.
Is that movie? It's got the guy that was in Dream Scenario in it. Have you seen Dream Scenario?
It's got Adam Driver in it.
No, different film. Yeah. There's a film going through the cinemas at the moment. Nick Cage.
Oh yeah.
He's the lead in it.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it. I was like, I seen the trailer and went, oh, this looks epic. And then I looked at the reviews and it's like 2 out of 10. And the director, I'll probably absolutely butcher it, but has done like all these hectic classics. And I'm like, surely it's one of the things I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, everyone can have a flop, but it just seems a bit,
yeah.
I don't know. I guess, just distribution of everything.
There's so many different factors in making a film and releasing it. And just one of those factors can throw it off, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many films don't even get distributed at all? Don't get in festivals? I think it's something like 9 out of 10.
It's the same with music. Like, there's so many musicians, super talented at creating these amazing songs, and they don't get any attention. And there's so much noise out there, like on Spotify especially, and all the other streaming platforms. There's not much of a gatekeep to putting your content out there anymore, that you can just put thousands of hours of content on there, and music. It's actually very hard now to get heard. Yeah.
How do you cut through?
I don't know. Like I'm in no means viral artist or anything, but
Your music.
I mean, I'm great. Well, yeah. I mean, relatively, maybe. I'm grateful to have the streams and stuff that I do now.
Which is what? In the millions?
Yeah.
That's viral, bro.
Yeah. I mean, when compared to like all these big other artists, like Hans Zimmer and stuff, we've got 10 million, like 20 millions, whatever it is. But I've just been putting my music out there and then hoping, like I follow the rules. Like I try and get out there on playlists. I try and make good music and try and improve every single time. I do social media and everything. And then you just have to kind of hope that you cut through. But there's so many people with amazing music, better music than I could ever make, and they haven't cut through. And I don't know what it is that those songs would be lacking, or what is it, the promo that they haven't followed through on, or it's just perseverance. I think you just have to keep going, putting stuff out there, and eventually it'll click. It's about like Murphy's Law. Whatever can happen will happen. If you give it enough time. You just have to keep going.
It's one of them things I think like, yeah, there's so many thoughts around it all, I guess. I mean, but like it's all these great artists you're talking about that don't get seen, and then they hear one song and then they go back and they went, all of their songs were perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like it's just one of them cut through.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, I think what my biggest release, Stories from the Sky, I gained a lot of listeners from that release, and it's almost like all my previous albums have had a huge jump in streams now, because those people would listen to Stories from the Sky, then they would say, oh, I wonder what other music this artist has, go back, and then all of them kind of have gained a bit of virality from that. It's a bit strange, yeah.
I mean, there's always artists that I've seen, I just mean like bands where I've heard a song and went, oh, I've never heard of this band, awesome, start listening to them on Apple Music, or I use Apple Music, not Spotify.
Yeah.
Not as cool. And then I start listening to all their other music, and then I'm like, this is my favourite song of their album, and it wasn't the one I heard. And it's like, wow, and I never would have heard that. And it's like, it's not one of the hits. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If you're not streaming albums, you're just going for singles, and you miss out on
you get
all
stuck
these.
in that.
Yeah, you miss out on all these songs that you could potentially love. You just don't get heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, as an artist, the songs that you intend to go famous, the songs that you would want to be known for, usually never go famous. It's usually some other song. Like on my new album, I specifically wrote down maybe 2 or 3 songs that are my personal favorites that I've ever done, and are the songs that I would be like, these are the songs I'd want people to remember me for. But then they didn't get anywhere near as many streams as the other ones did.
Just being honest, if I ask you that, do you want to be remembered for them songs, or do you think they like is it that thought of, I think they're going to be viral?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that. I think they would go viral, but also because they're my personal favorites, I feel like they're a good representation of me as an artist. Like they represent my creativity and who I am as an artist, like my unique genre. But then those are usually never the ones to go super viral.
Like, if you write a song with the intent for it to go viral, as opposed to like you write a song that you don't give a fuck if anyone likes, and you're just completely expressing yourself authentically, even though you think this one will go viral, that one's probably more going to go viral.
I mean, sometimes. I've never really looked into it, but I'd be keen to see whether those are the songs that always consistently just go viral. Maybe. I mean,
I feel like, and going back to like Joker, like that, the first dance scene was authentic, and it become that iconic moment in the film.
Yeah.
And the second one was forced. So it was as if they're like, we think these will go viral too, and it will hold out, like it will hold up and do all this, and it didn't. It felt forced now.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it needs to be very improvisational and very just in the moment, spur of the moment kind of thing. Whereas if you sit down and try and write a viral song, it won't go viral. Yeah, I mean, it's just different approaches as well.
We need the answers. We need some scientists.
We need some psychologists to help us out here.
Yeah, someone to figure it out and just tell us.
Yeah. So what have you been doing this year? You've been busy. Green Frog.
Flat out.
Yeah.
We just had
bunch of films.
Yeah, we got 3 new films. Empty Net's done a couple of Q&A screenings.
Yep.
Pre-recorded Q&A with the director in Germany. But yeah, a couple of screenings in Sydney, Newcastle.
Yep.
Sweetland just done a 4-week release through cinemas across Sydney, Armidale, Sawtell, Coffs Harbour, Central Coast, just a few places. And we acquired The King Tide, which will be coming out next year. We're going to push through cinemas as well. But yesterday we accepted, I can't say yet, we accepted a deal with a streaming service, which will be coming out later next year. So Green Frog's been going good.
How did you...
Going well.
Because it almost feels like it's like a snowball this year for you. Like it's just been back-to-back films being acquired. Was it hard getting that first one, and then did it start rolling from that, or was it just been all in the works simultaneously?
2 things I guess come to mind when you ask that is, number one, I felt like the year before, not the year before we were doing The Promise, the year before that, it was more, I can't have like an empty calendar. If I'm doing nothing, it kills me.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I don't get depressed, but I don't feel myself, and I'm just kind of got to be busy, got to be moving, got to be achieving stuff, got to be just, So I had this thought where I was like, all I've done this year is like, let's just say hypothetically, I like 5 things a week. Like Monday to Friday, I'm doing one big thing a day, 5 big things a week. And over the course of the year, I've done all these things. Great. And then I'm like, but none of them felt big enough to be like, I'm so proud of one big thing for the year.
Yep.
So I had this thought, really good mate of mine, we catch up once a week and talk about business, mindset, motivation moving forward, just really, really good conversations, just positive, everything. And I said moving into 2024, I'm going to do one thing a month.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do 12 things for the year. Yeah, I don't care in which order they unfold or whatnot, but I'm just going to not chase them smaller
wins and
the smaller
tasks,
wins that kind of add up to nothing. I might go 2 months with no win and have nothing to fill in on, but then that one win is so big.
Yeah.
So that was the idea. So like less is more.
Yeah.
So the goal of the year was to acquire one film and start moving in the distribution space and still like producing films, but also like acquiring and distributing. But I wanted to be very specific on what we've done. Green Frog's got a mission statement, and I just wanted it to align with our brand and add to the caliber of films we're going to tell.
Yeah.
And I was pushing for this one of the 12 goals was to get a film. So I'm pushing. I got pretty close to one. Finally watched it, like talking to the filmmakers and whatever, and just went, no, it's not for us. And it was just like, I'm like, oh my goodness, that took like 3 months. And I was like, holy shit. And then same thing, just push. Got to a point where it was so weird because I'm figuring it all out on my own. And like you think you got to find a film that's made.
Yeah.
You got to find a film that is not distributed in Australia, not signed in Australia, has nothing, like it's available.
Yeah.
Then you got to contact whoever you got to contact to talk about all this and say like, we want to acquire the film. And then after all that, they send you a link, and then the film could be shit or good or anything. So I got to this point so many times and then just went, we don't want it anyways.
It's hard to know.
And then the ones that we did, then you start the negotiations and hopefully you can get the deal done. So I got to a point where I was just like, holy shit, there is so much more work here and like time to get a deal done. There's so much more time and effort
to get
needed.
to that point even. Yeah.
So I just went tenfold on it and was just like doing ridiculous hours and going to film festivals and just like researching this film director and this and just going as much as I could. And we got Empty Nets across the line.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 weeks later, got Sweetland, and then a week after got The King Tide. And it was, and then it was almost like when Empty Nets started coming around, I stopped, but it was like the momentum still kept rolling. That then we got Sweetland and The King Tide.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. So, it was great. So we're starting to look now for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially now that like all them 3 will be tied up on streaming services. Promises on Stan, Beats on Stan. So
is there something that you've been looking for in these films, or is it a quality that you want there to be like some sort of cohesiveness across all of these films that Green Frog has?
Yeah. A quality to the filmmaking. And just like that thing, like what we're talking about before, like where do you put the cut?
Yeah.
Like what that intuition of that decision, I feel like I've spent a lot of time analysing and like reflecting what movies I like and why I like them and trusting that. So when I watch a movie, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just really listening to that. And somehow in words, I've wrote a mission statement and said like we want films that are going to like entertain, inspire, influence, create positive change or whatever our audiences, but I know in myself that feeling that I need to get from a film. So like someone could read the mission statement, hopefully like it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's just a terminology just to kind of like know we've got.
Yeah.
It's more that feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it's every good piece of art has to kind of make you feel something, but it's different to everyone. And so like people can read the mission statement, but then they may not necessarily do it for you. Like they won't make you feel personally from watching their film. So it's super interesting kind of dissecting that.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I feel as if now, and genres are probably a big thing too, is like there's only X amount of genres.
Yeah.
Documentaries, dramas, thrillers. I don't think we could touch horrors, but the rest.
I mean, is there genres that you wouldn't want to take on? Like comedy, for example. You would take it if it held true to the cohesiveness of the other films.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
comedy
feel
is
like
always a hard one. Like
I love comedies.
Yeah.
I'll watch a comedy once a week. Always. I love a comedy.
but it's a different kind of film. Even from a musician standpoint, like a film composer standpoint, I don't think I would ever touch a comedy.
No.
I don't know what I would do. It's just probably the hardest genre to touch as a film composer.
I think genres are probably bad because there's sometimes you look at a film and like I'm like, how is that in that genre
category?
It doesn't make any sense. But like if it was like I can't say no because if it was like a comedy horror and this A24 films that are horrors and I'm like I laughed heaps in that.
Yeah. Really.
So it's like I don't know. I can't really say no, but specifically like there's a caliber of films. There's like only X amount of, I mean, that's the world. And I know that all these films kind of exist.
Well, like a lot of the films that Green Frog acquired this year, they're cinematic in nature. Like they tell the story very cinematically. But it's, from what I've seen, it seems hard to achieve that cinematic nature in a comedy. Like I don't know if I've seen many comedies that are cinematic. I don't know. Have you? Like, it's a bit hard to do that.
Like I watched
because comedies they have a very carefree attitude towards the filmmaking. I feel, and it comes across that way on the screen. But if you were to go like Christopher Nolan in a comedy, like Die Hard, like cinematic nature, I mean, could you achieve a comedy? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a good thought because I was watching Uncut Gems the other day.
Yeah.
And I know Adam Sandler is a comedian and comes from that, like the comedy world.
Yeah.
But it feels like a drama.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cinematic.
And I've seen it on Netflix under the comedy category.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there are times I'm laughing in it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like genres aren't probably the best way to like.
There's a lot of genre blending, I guess, these days.
Yeah.
I mean, they make some really unique films as well when you blend these genres. Even in music, like I blend the genres all the time. I try to because it's a unique perspective. You can't just be in one anymore.
Yeah. It's even like someone said about, I bumped into someone at the gym and they went, and they're chatting away and they said, I just never thought you would have done a musical for your first film. And I'm like, I can see like beats a musical.
I mean, I didn't even think about it as a musical.
Yeah, and I'm just like, because we're talking about Joker.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why would they do Joker 2 as a musical? Like, absolutely butchered. And they went, I guess I didn't think you would do one for your first one either. And I was like, never even thought of that. I'm like, I guess they're right. I don't know.
True.
Like,
I didn't even think about that.
yeah, so it's just like, it's just that blending of genres. So probably it's probably not the best way to say what films we're looking for, but it definitely helps like just get there a bit quicker for acquiring films anyways. Like if I'm going to go to a film festival and there's 4 comedies and 2 thrillers, I'm probably going to go watch the thrillers.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
I mean, I'm probably drawn towards the dramas and the thrillers and stuff as well.
Just darker things.
Yeah, exactly. I prefer like kind of darker and sadder film and darker, sadder music as well. I feel like it is harder for a movie to make you cry almost, but when you walk out of the cinema, it'll stay with you for like a week. Whereas a comedy has never stayed with me for that long. You probably remember it for like 30 minutes after the movie, and that's it.
Yeah.
But they're just way more impactful for me.
Yeah. And there's an emotional, like it emotionally moves people.
Yeah, that's it.
Like people might feel sick and go, oh my goodness.
It'll stay with you for weeks.
Even to the point where then they'll actually change things in their life. Like they will stop using a particular product.
Yeah.
Because that was emotion.
Like The Promise, it will emotionally move you to the point that you feel sick watching it and you want to make a change. You want to get help. You want to talk to people.
Yeah.
But that's to me is a bigger purpose than many of the comedies I've seen try to achieve. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like there's just like, in my head, it's like movies and film.
Yeah.
And it's like film is cinema.
Entertainment movies.
Yeah.
And then there's film art. Yeah.
And I feel like Green Frog want to
be in the film space. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love watching movies. Like, I love watching the entertainment value, like all the Marvel movies and stuff. We grew up watching them. Yeah. But then when you see a film, it's like, that's when I switch on the filmmaker's brain. I pay attention to the editing and the score and the lighting and everything. Yeah. And just, I'm in awe by the cinematic nature of the telling the story. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So, I think next year's going to be good. Like, we've got production of a few films coming up.
Big projects.
International.
Yeah.
International work.
It almost feels like we're always throwing ourselves in the deep end before we know how to swim for every single project we take on.
I feel I'm way too confident with it. I've been feeling like, you stand at the beach and you've got your feet in the sand, but you're at the water's edge and the water pulls away. It's just sand, but while it's pulling away, it's building a surge of water, and then you get more water come in. I feel like coming into next year's all that water's coming in.
Yeah. I'm not the same with music. As a composer, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Every time I'm approached, like when you approach me on a film, I just say yes anyway because it sounds like a cool project, but I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. It's like throwing myself in the deep end every single time.
Yeah, right.
And then when you're in that moment, when you're like struggling to breathe and you're drowning because you've thrown yourself in the deep end,
figure it
out.
Yeah.
And when you figure it out, that method you figured out is going to be the gold.
Yeah.
Especially for next year with these two big projects. They're so unique. I've never touched anything like that in music.
And I already know the conversations I'm going to have with you about everything.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting challenge, but pulling it off, it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, we're the best team for it.
Yeah. Green Frog Productions, let's go.
Bloody hell.